Hello everyone, my name is Steve Hanney, founder and CEO of Aspenify. Within this tutorial, you will learn about the innovative Designer Module within the Aspenify Unified Playbook Management Platform. The Designer Module offers two primary functions. One, create, edit, and publish playbooks. And two, connect, edit, and manage your content and resources. Note that the prerequisite for this module is the Conductor tutorial, where you can learn about accounts, workspaces, and community management. The video can be found through our support page at www.aspenify.com/support. The first question you may be asking is, what is a playbook? Well, the purpose of a playbook is to define a consistent, repeatable approach to doing something, similar to the way that playbooks are used within sports. The something could relate to the business community in activities that require a consistent, repeatable approach, such as onboarding employees or launching a new product. Or, in addition, it could relate to a life experience such as planning an event or going on a vacation. Effectively, a playbook can be used to organize activities, content, and communities across repeatable projects and initiatives. So, let's take a look at how we can create, edit, and publish playbooks. First, I log in. As I indicated, the Conductor module we've covered in a different tutorial, so I'm going to jump straight over to Designer. And here, right away, you'll see these playbooks that I've been working on in a new workspace called Restaurant Franchise. So this is actually for a real client where we're building playbooks specific to certain projects and certain activities that this individual is performing in a repeatable way. Because it's a franchise, one of the main playbooks we're working on is a consistent approach to opening a new restaurant. For anyone that's done this in the past, it's a pretty complicated process, and it's really good to have it documented with all the right steps and associated content and roles and responsibilities already predefined. And that's effectively what this playbook will share. So let's click on it. This is actually in design, which means it's being edited right now. If it's published, it is indicated with the green label, but also it's read-only. So you cannot edit these published ones. There is a trick to it a little bit later on, which I'll share. But at this moment, these are published and are read-only. So let's dive in. First thing you'll see is the playbook has a count for the number of activities along with the number of people that are collaborating on the building of the playbook. So the good news with the Aspenify platform is you can collaboratively build playbooks together, all remotely from one another. So you can log into the system, you can look at what your peers and colleagues have been working on and be able to make updates in real time. Next thing you'll notice is on the right-hand side of the screen, when I select a particular playbook, it lists the different views that you have for that playbook. First one is define and select. Second one is configure. So let's jump in. Within the configure option, you get to define the workflow as well as the roles. And the workflow is a single layer or multi-layer. In this case, we have multiple layers of workflow. You can think of these as phases and stages of a sequence. And we call them exactly that. So if you right click and you want to add a new phase, you can do that. If you want to add a new stage, you can do that. Phase is the top layer, hence it's the one closest to the left, and a stage is indented a little bit. So this, you can think of this as layer 1, this is layer 2, and it helps to define the various sequence of work that needs to be performed for this playbook. You can also consider each of these lines as a column in your playbook, where a column heading is concept phase, maybe a subheading is concept, and then within concept you'll have a number of activities. You can think of these as tasks. So I'll jump straight over to the sequence view to give you an example. So here we have a phase called concept phase. Here we have concept, which is a stage, and then here we have the various activities that are to be performed within this stage. Activities sometimes are also called tasks. To add a new activity, it's very simple. You just add a new activity, give it a new name, right there. maybe a description. I'll be very precise today. And you give it a duration. We'll give it a day. Hit add, and now you have the new activity. If you're not happy with it being at the bottom of the list, you can move it up. You can move it to the right. You can move it anywhere in your playbook. And that's a really good, nice way to organize things as you need to. If you want to edit the activity and update the name, you can just click on it and hit update. If you want to update the description, you have a full rich text option to do that as well. To set an activity as a milestone, you just click on the milestone button. This is a symbol to represent this is a milestone. Equally, there are some checks in here that make sure that this has at least one dependency if you set up something as a milestone. You'll also notice that the color changes as well. So that yellow color is indicative of it being a milestone. You'll also notice when I clicked on Research Local Area, the study options turned light blue. This is because study options is a dependency on Research Local Area. So for me to edit a dependency, I can do that just by clicking the dependency button, and I can turn it off if I want to, or I can click on it again and turn it back on. To turn off the dependency mode, I can just click the dependency icon, and now we're back to normal. If I want to add a dependency for the new activity that I just added, I just click the dependency button, click on that, and away we go. Very simple. And you'll see that being reflected under the Depends On card. Now we have this dependency that I just set up. So for example, I go here, which has no dependency, and I add a new one. I can just click on it, and lo and behold, it's added in right there. Now, going back to the configure view, the next part is the roles. And you can think of the first layer as the group, add group, and you think of the second layer as the role itself. Now, one thing to remember about playbooks is that at the time you're building a playbook, you do not necessarily have a list of people with real life names associated with them, but you do know what the roles are. So when you're building a playbook, it's really important to distinguish and separate the roles. Those roles will become very, very important when you actually want to execute a playbook, because those roles help you define which person is going to do the work. So keep that in mind as you build out your playbook. It's always a good idea to be thorough on the number of roles, and then you can always pare it back later on. These little chevrons as well can be used to minimize the different choices as well. So you don't necessarily have to have everything displayed completely. Same is true over on the left here as well. Okay, so now that I've got my roles, I can go in and I can start to assign the work. And you can see here there's various different colors attributed to each of these tiles. This is because we've started to assign the roles to each of these tiles. So if I click on the stage basic menu structure and I see assign roles here, I can see that the owner is accountable, the owner is responsible, and another owner, let's say if that's applicable, could also be responsible. So typically most restaurants have at least 2 people involved in setting the overall restaurant up. So in this case, you've got allocation for 2. If you need to add more, you can certainly do that. Now, the mechanism that we're using here, you'll see the label called RACI. RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So I have the ability to set any of the roles depending on the type of engagement they have in a particular activity. If I set the RACI up at the top level, I also have the ability to propagate it down. We did this to really simplify editing and not have it where you had to add every single RACI for every single activity. We've made it so that you can do it once at the top level, propagate it down, and that saves a lot of time. You can then tune the individual tiles as appropriate. So we've talked about dependencies, we've talked about assigned roles. Now let's talk a little bit about content. So content is editable and accessible via these 3 cards here. The references section is typically used when you want to apply content or resources that you need to read or check up on for a particular activity. So it's very good for websites, it's very good for videos, training videos, that kind of stuff. If you are working on a particular deliverable, then you typically have a template in the input section and you load your deliverable in your output section. And I'll show you how to add content as we move into the content module next. The next view is called the assign view. It's also known as the team view. Here you can see the various activities that are assigned to that role. So owner has all of this work to do. Owner 2 has this work to do. If I move across, you can see other people like the chef has quite a bit of work to do. Front of house, restaurant manager. So this becomes a very nice way to view the checklist of all the items that are being displayed. Again, each of these can be selected on. You can review the specific items and make appropriate changes. If you need to expand the screen as well, you can just hit the left chevron here and it will give you the full screen size to be able to take a look at. And then the last view is publish. So once you're ready to publish, you hit the publish button, hit OK, and you're good to go. So that's all well and good. You know, we've gone through the process of editing and updating a playbook. We've added a couple of activities. We've published the playbook and everything's great, right? What happens if you have errors in your playbook? So right now I have 4 published playbooks. For me to be able to edit one of these playbooks, I need to export it. By exporting it, I put it into my download directory on my hard drive, and I can import it again. By doing that, I'm actually able to edit this same playbook. This one stays published, it's usable within the Navigator, but now I create a copy that I can start editing again. So I'm going to use this as a baseline for a little bit of a test around creating errors in a playbook. So first of all, let's go to the sequence, and in this particular case, I'm going to create a circular reference. What is a circular reference? Well, it's basically where a dependency is set up to depend on itself. So if I click New Activity here, add a dependency for Establish Very Basic Menu. Now I turn it off. Now I click on the tile that I just set up the dependency to, and I now add a new dependency pointing to New Activity. So I've effectively created a loop here. This is very doable when you're editing, but it's not very good when you publish, because this could actually create a loop for people to get stuck in. Also, given that the Navigator is auto-generating timelines, it creates a problem in the logic for when you are setting up these loops, because you cannot calculate time effectively if there's an infinite loop here. So we actually check for this. We check for this in the validate button. So if I hit validate, it will actually tell me that these 2 items are looped together. If I hit remove all, it will remove the circular side of that dependency list. So it will actually firstly tell you, then it will remove it and make it so that your playbook is publishable. Equally, if I go to publish now, it will do a check before the publish button is pressed. So if you accidentally forget to hit the validate and you move straight to publish, it will also do a check there. So I can fix manually and go back, or I can hit remove all, and it will automatically remove that circular dependency from here, and you can see that dependency is now gone, whereas the original is still there, right? So this is actually a very nice feature for people who want to make sure they're building the right playbook. So now I can go ahead and I can hit publish all over again. Okay, so moving on to content. Here is the current content list that we have within this particular workspace. If I want to add new content, I can do that right here. Add its new name, right? If I could type, give it a description, give it a content type. In this case, it's a link to a web page. Right, give it an author so we can accredit it back to the original owner of the content, create its particular categorization. I'm going to, because we're doing a restaurant, I'm just going to put it under hospitality for now. And then I will create one called a restaurant. Let's try that. So I'll publish that, and new content or exist, new content 2. I'll hit publish for that. Now we see new content 2 right at the top. If I click on the link, it will take me to the support page of Aspenify, just like I asked it to. And now this content is available for me to use within a particular playbook. So if I go back to open a restaurant, click on the sequence, and if I click under content, it should say new content 2 down here right at the bottom. So now, for example, if I study my options, click on references, I can just drag that straight in, and now, boom, off I go. I can immediately go to the support page. So this ability to add content in the current release is all predicated on you working within this content window right here. Hit the plus, add the content, make sure it's published, and then it becomes available for submission in any of your playbooks. We are going to be adding a feature where you can drag and drop from your desktop as well. That will be planned for an up-and-coming release. So that just about wraps up the designer tutorial. During the video, we focused on creating, editing, and publishing playbooks, adding and editing content, and the use of export and import. In our next tutorial video, we will explore how to apply a playbook to a real-life project using the Navigator. Feel free to provide a comment on our YouTube page and on our forums. You can access both at www.aspenify.com/support. You can also join our forums at http://forums.aspenify.com. And on behalf of Aspenify, I wanted to thank you for watching this video. Have a great day.